friends! I'm so excited to be back today sharing another story with you. Do you remember my name? Well, if you don't, my name is Sarah and I work for CIPD. Last time I was here, we read a story called Grumpy Monkey, and we talked about retelling. Remember, when we retell a story, we talk about the beginning, the middle, and the end. So today, I'm going to share with you another story, and we're going to think about something else today. Today, we're going to think about story elements. So I brought a chart with me so that I could share with you what's on my chart. Today, we're going to talk about story elements. And when you read a fiction book, all of our fiction books have all of these things in our story element chart. So today, we're going to look really closely at the characters in our story. Who is in our story? We're going to look very closely at the setting. Where does the story and when does the story take place? We're going to look closely at the problem. What went wrong? What needs to be fixed in the story? And then we're going to look at the solution. And the solution is, how did we fix the problem? Are you ready to learn with me today? Excellent. We're going to read a story today called Harry the Dirty Dog. Harry the Dirty Dog is written by Gene Zion. When it says written by Gene Zion, what does that mean he is? That's right, he's the author. It says pictures by Margaret Bloy Graham. If the pictures are by Margaret Bloy Graham, what did she do? She's the illustrator. All right, let's get started. Harry the Dirty Dog. Harry was a white dog with black spots who liked everything except getting a bath. So one day when he heard the water running in the tub, he took the scrubbing brush and buried the scrubbing brush in the backyard. Can you show me how to bury something? Good digging, friends. Then he ran away from home. So when we're reading, let's make sure we pay close attention to Harry. He played where they were fixing the street and got very dirty. Look at Harry's paws here. He played in the railroad and got even dirtier. Can you find Harry? There he is. He played tag with the other dogs and became dirtier still. What's happening to Harry? He slid down a coal chute and got the dirtiest of all. In fact, he changed from a white dog with black spots to a black dog with white spots. What happened to Harry? That's right, he changed from a white dog with black spots to a black dog with white spots. Although there were many other things to do, Harry began to wonder if his family thought that he had really run away. He felt tired and hungry too, so without stopping on the way, he ran back home. How does Harry feel right here? Make a face to show me how Harry feels here. Yeah, he feels kind of sad and lonely. When Harry got to his house, he crawled through the fence and sat looking at the back door. One of the family looked out and said, "There's a strange dog in our backyard. By the way, has anybody seen Harry?" Why doesn't his family recognize him anymore? Oh, that's right, because he changed from a white dog with black spots to a black dog with white spots. When Harry heard this, he tried very hard to show them he was Harry. He started to do all his old tricks. He flip-flopped, he flop-flipped, he rolled over and played dead. He danced and he sang. He did these tricks over and over and over again, but everyone shook their head and said, "No, that couldn't be Harry." Harry gave up and walked slowly toward the gate, but suddenly he stopped. He ran to a corner of the garden and started to dig furiously. Soon he jumped away from the hole, barking short, happy barks. What did Harry do? He unburied his brush. Why did Harry unbury his brush? Oh, let's see. He'd found the scrubbing brush. and carrying it in his mouth, he ran into the house. Up the stairs he dashed with the family, following close behind. He jumped into the bathtub and sat up begging with the scrubbing brush in his mouth, a trick he certainly had never done before. "This little doggie wants a bath," cried the little girl, and her father said, "Why don't you and your brother give him one?" Harry's bath was the soapiest one he'd ever had, and it worked like magic. As soon as the children started to scrub, they began shouting, "Mommy, Daddy, look, look, come quick!" "It's Harry, it's Harry, it's Harry," they cried. Let's read that together again. "It's Harry, it's Harry, it's Harry," they cried. Harry wagged his tail and was very, very, very happy. His family combed and brushed him lovingly, and he became once again a white dog with black spots. It was wonderful to be home. After dinner, Harry fell asleep in his favorite place, happily dreaming of how much fun it had been getting dirty. He slept so soundly, he didn't even feel the scrubbing brush he'd hidden under his pillow. All right, so let's take a minute to think about our story elements in our story. We just finished a great book about Harry the Dirty Dog. And now we're going to talk about story elements with our book, Harry the Dirty Dog. So remember our chart, story elements are all of the things that make up our story. Our characters are who are in the story. Who is on every page? Who's doing all of the action? So in this book, who is our character? You're so smart. It is Harry. So now I want to add that is my character to my chart. So I'm going to write, the character is Harry. I'm going to write it here, but I want you to write it at home. The character is Harry. Let's talk about the setting. When and where does the story happen? So if we're thinking about Harry the Dirty Dog, and we were to go back and look at the pages, when and where is our story happening? I see the sun, and I see that it's light out, so I'm thinking it's during the day. I see a little bit of builders back here. I see shops. I see cars. So I think it happens in the city. So if I were going to say the setting of Harry the Dirty Dog, what might I say? Good ideas. So the setting is in the city during the day. So let's add that to our chart. The setting is in the city during the day. Did you write something like that down on your paper? Excellent. So now what is the problem? What is something that went wrong in our story, Harry the Dirty Dog? Let's think for a minute. What was the problem in Harry the Dirty Dog? What ideas do you have? Oh, the problem is that Harry got dirty and his family didn't recognize him. Let's add that to our chart. The problem is Harry got so dirty, his family did not know who he was. So that was our problem. That was what we had to fix. What was the solution? How did Harry fix the problem in the story? How did he fix the problem in the story? So if we open it back up, how did he fix his problem in the story? Get your ideas. What do you think was the solution? How did he fix his problem? I agree. The solution is that he took a bath and changed back to a white dog with black spots. The solution is Harry took a bath and was a white dog with black spots. So when you're reading a story, remember your fiction stories have story elements. They have characters, who is in the story. They have a setting, when and where does the story take place. They have a problem, something that goes wrong that they need to fix. And they have a solution, how they fix their problem. So when you are reading stories today and tomorrow and the next day, I want you to think about the story elements and teach your mom and dad and your brothers and sisters all about story elements. I will see you guys again with another book. Bye!
My name is Miss Mimi. Welcome to ELA Tuesdays. You know what? I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but ELA stands for English Language Arts. That means it includes more than just reading, it also includes writing. And today we're going to work on writing for grades 3 through 6. Now in your distance learning, you've been writing a personal narrative, which is just another way of saying a story about yourself. Today, I'm going to teach you how to add transition words to your personal narrative. So, what you'll need today is a paper and a pencil. Go ahead, get ready to learn. Welcome back. Okay, so one thing that good writers do is they add transition words. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, what are transition words? Let me show you what I mean by that. Transition words, they are words or even phrases that we use at the beginning of sentences that help us to move the story forward. You see the arrow? It pushes and moves the story as we go along. It also helps to add sequence information. Here we have 1, 2, 3. So what in your story happens first, next, and then last? You see, listeners, I even just then used some transition words. I have more transition words I like to share with you. So do you have your paper and pencil ready? Okay, great. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to share with you some transition words that have been categorized into 5 different categories. And I want you to jot down if there's any transition words that might be new to you or words you might want to try using in your own writing. Okay, so let's talk about actual transition words. Here are some examples. Some transition words helps us to sequence the events, just like I mentioned a moment ago, such as first, next, then, last. Those are all examples of sequence events. Let's take a look and see if we can find some other ones. Here's first and next. I also already used then, and I just used also. There's also lastly, finally, until. How about now or before, later, after that? Those are all transitional words that help us to sequence what we're writing. It helps the reader understand where we are and where we're going. Did you get a chance to jot down any? Which words did you choose? I think one that I like to use often is afterwards. Let's look at another category of transition words. Let's talk about changing ideas. So keep in mind, transitions, that's another way of saying changing. So I'm changing from one thought to another thought, or I'm changing from one idea to another. So here are some examples of transition words you can use when you're wanting to change your idea. Some of these words would include, and you can read them along with me if you like, although, but, yet, still, rather, however, here's another one of my favorites, nevertheless, on the other hand. Okay, go ahead and take a moment to jot down 1 or 2 transition words you'll like to try today. Listeners, what if I don't necessarily want to change my line of thinking in my writing, but I just want to continue with it? I still am going to make a transition. Here are some examples of transition words you can use then. They would include words such as and, also, again, next, another, in addition. Okay, take a moment to jot down another word or two. Good job, writers. Now, what if I wanted to use a transition word to denote a change in time? Here are some examples of words that you could use. The first one here, and once again, you can say them with me, are lately, immediately, earlier, once, at the same time, little by little, as well as already. Okay, take a moment to jot down one of those words you'd like to try to use today, or maybe just a word that's new to you that you haven't used in the past. Okay, finally. Did you notice what I did there, listeners? I actually used a transition word. Finally, let's talk about words that we can use when we want to change in our writing from talking about a topic to concluding about it. Here are some words you can use to transition into a conclusion. They include words such as lastly, finally, as a result, consequently, at last, thus, in summary, as well as in conclusion. Okay, so once again, take a moment to jot down a word or two you'd like to try to use today. Okay, let's go ahead and start trying this out. I have a group of sentences here. What we're going to do is we're going to read through it together, and then we're going to go back and add some transition words. Now, for the younger grades, I'd love it if you were to read with me. Are you ready to read together? All together, it says, I got up in the morning, I ate breakfast, my mom helped me log on to my class. It kicked me off. I got back on with some help. I was able to learn no matter what. Okay, good job, writers. Now, hopefully you noticed though, as we're reading through these sentences, they sounded a little, let's say, choppy, almost like a robot. I got up in the morning, I ate breakfast, my mom helped me. Did you notice how it seems a little bit choppy? I also have to admit, it sounds a little bit boring. So what we're going to do is, we're going to add some transition words. Do you remember some of the words that you jot down on your paper? Let's see if we happen to add any of those to this one. Okay, let's go ahead and add some transition words. Okay, so here we are with some transition words. Can you figure out which ones are the transition words or phrases? Probably pretty easy, right? Because I actually wrote them in red. But while we're practicing, I think this is okay. Let's read the transition words together. These transition words are after, when I was ready, although, consequently. Okay, great. Now let's see how adding those transition words changed our writing. Are you ready to read it all together with me? Here we go. After I got up in the morning, I ate breakfast. When I was ready, my mom helped me log on to my class. Although it kicked me off, I got back on with some help. Consequently, I was able to learn no matter what. Good job, listeners. So we're adding transition words to our writing to help it be less choppy, and also it has a logical flow to it. It pushes the story along. Are you ready to try this out yourself? Okay, so you remember the paper that you were writing down your transition words on, right? Now I'm going to have you write some sentences on your paper. And as we read through these sentences and as you write them down, I'm going to have you go back and add some transition words. Okay, now it's your turn. You've got your paper, you've got your pencil, and I've got some patience. So let's go ahead and start writing these sentences down so that we can add transition words to it in a moment. The first sentence is, I sat down at the kitchen table. Take a moment to write it on your paper. Please say the words as you write them. Good job. Here's your next sentence. My brother brought out the meal. Don't forget, writers, to say the words as you're writing them. Next sentence. I frowned. Let's continue. It was spaghetti. I was scared to try it. Good job keeping up with me. Next sentence. I ate it. Next sentence. It was delicious. Okay, are you ready for your last sentence? Well, as you can see there, let's read it together before you write it. I hope he makes it again. Okay, go ahead and add that one to your paper as well. Very good, writers. Okay, so hopefully you're ready to start your independent practice. Here again is what I want you to do. I'm going to give you about a minute to add at least one transition word to these sentences that are here. You can add as many as you like. Are you ready? Okay, go ahead. Start revising. Okay, so did you do it? Did you add any transitional words to this piece of text? Now, I'm sure what you came up with was probably better than what I could come up with, but let me show you what I did. Okay, so here are some transitional words that I added to those sentences. But before we get started, you'll notice that my transitional words or transition words aren't red anymore. Can you pick out the transition words that I used? Yeah, there's actually one I wish I had added now that I'm going back and rereading through this. And writers, you'll notice that as writers, we are readers, and we'll have to read our writing over and over again as we revise and make changes. I actually think writing is kind of like art. You don't just draw a picture and walk away. Sometimes you go back to it over and over again as you create that picture with more detail and more imagination. You can do that same thing with your own writing. I wish I could go back and change this some more. Maybe I'll do it after the show. Okay, so let's go ahead and read through this. Oh, but I forgot. Did you find those transition words? Here's what I found. After? Very good. How about immediately? And although? Did I forget any? Okay, I hope I didn't, but if I did, I'm sure you'll catch me. Let's go ahead and read these sentences now with these transition words that we added. It says here, after I sat down at the kitchen table, my brother brought out the meal. Immediately I frowned. It was spaghetti. Although I was scared to try it, I ate it. It was delicious. I hope he makes it again. Writers, I think I might add the word consequently here, or finally as I'm ending. That was the one I was thinking about. Okay, so I showed you how to do it. We got to practice a little bit together. This is what I would suggest next. This week, as you continue to work on your personal narratives in your distance learning classroom, I want you to go back and revise by adding transition words. If you've already done that, maybe you might try starting your own personal narrative right now, maybe even today, and use those transition words, such as the ones that you jotted down on your paper. Okay, so that ends our lesson for today. But first, let's review what we talked about. Today we learned how to add transition words to our writing so that it's not so choppy, and also so that it's more interesting. These transition words that we added helps to move the story along. In addition to moving it along, it helps your reader understand where you are at in a logical sense, because it can sequence the things that you're writing about. And don't forget, your assignment is what? I want you to try it at home. I want you to take some of your writing from your distance learning class, and I want you to practice revising it by adding transition words. And don't forget, if you've already turned it in, no sweat. Write a personal narrative and add those transition words. Well, that's about all the time we have this week. I'm really glad that you were able to join me in my class today. So long from Miss Mimi.
Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to another edition of KCPS Homeroom. My name is Chris Odom. I'm your ELA coordinator for the Kansas City Public Schools. I'm excited to work with you again today. Today we're going to learn a little bit about some poetry and point of view. Let's take a look here. Again, I always like to start off with a picture, and this is Elizabeth Acevedo, and I got a chance to see her perform, work with her in my classroom here in Kansas City Public Schools at Paseo Academy, and so I always like to revisit that moment as we get started. Let's also take a look at this quote, and since we're talking about point of view today, I thought I would feature one of the quotes that kind of gets passed around these days online by Acevedo, and she says, "And I can't trust this world to teach their sons how to treat my daughter, so I'll raise her to be a sword, a spear, a shield." Okay, so let's start thinking about what point of view really is, and as a reader, what you're deciding about when you're using that word, and how you can use evidence to support your decision about the point of view that is being used. And really what's important is why the author chose to use that point of view. Okay, so today we're going to feature again the work of Elizabeth Acevedo, who's the youngest child and only daughter of Dominican immigrants. She is a performance poet, the National Slam champion, and a Cave Canem Fellow, and she also won a National Book Award for the book we're going to look at today and feature a few of the poems from that narrative. Okay, today we're going to talk about point of view and define it for you. Again, I'm going to perform 5 of the small poems that are in the book as a great way for us to really springboard into talking about what point of view has to do with those poems and how you might find specific details that could help support what you decided was the point of view and why the author might have selected it. Okay, point of view is often a word that you hear a lot when people are online and even in the gaming world. So we're going to come up with this definition and call it the mode of narration the author chooses to let readers hear and see what takes place. And often, what we might experience sometimes in this point of view that we see in this image on the screen is first person, like as if we are living the moment ourselves. And this is often a way a lot of stories are portrayed. And another way is often called third person, in which we would not be so much in this car, but watching this car as it drove along. Okay, and also, point of view helps reflect an opinion of life. We might wonder, it looks like maybe they're traveling pretty quickly here, so if this was the point of view from which we were going to see the story, maybe the character who is driving this car is a little reckless. I don't know, maybe those are just blurry because it's pixelated. But it gives me this sense of maybe going quickly in this picture. So I'm already deciding about how that might influence the rest of the story. Okay, when we hear about point of view, we hear about first person, second person, third person. There's some variations on those. And these are helpful to think about, like in this case, if he is being photographed and on camera, then in that case, he's telling the story about himself, I or we as a collective. And in that case, he's in first person, right? Second person, we don't often see very many examples of in writing. And it's more a direction to people. And often when people speak in second person, they say you. It essentially feels a little bit of a strange moment because someone's pointing at you with that word. Like, you need to do this, or you need to do that, or you have something in your teeth. We don't often speak to each other that way in stories. So oftentimes most of the narration and most of the point of views that you're going to experience are either going to be first person or some form of third person, where you hear he, she, they, it, or the person's name. Okay, point of view is also not just first, second, or third person. And as you develop your skills as a reader, you know that and have probably heard that definition a lot of times. Don't forget to keep an open ear to that. It means more as we get older. It's a way to see some descriptive power in the writing and portray personal emotions. It also reveals the character's feelings about an experience or an action that they may be going through. So that's going to really point us toward our goal today as we do some reading. I'm going to try to give you a sense of what's going on in this narrative. But remember, I didn't write this story. So really, we're all together really searching for what are the portrayal of any personal emotions, and how do the characters who were living this story through feel about their experiences. If we were thinking about this guy and what point of view he might tell us, or why, let's say, the author is more involved in choosing why to tell this man's story. Hopefully it was to show that, everyone goes through things and that he's going to power through. But the point of view might be able to show how he fell apart and how some ways life got the best of him. So the author in some ways would have a decision to make if this was one of the characters that we're portraying, right? That has a lot to do with point of view. Okay, so we're going to apply it to a text. I'm going to read you a few poems I've previously selected that are by Elizabeth Acevedo. And in this book that we're going to attribute as a National Book Award winner, we've been using this book for a little while on some of the examples. We used it to talk about setting. We used it to talk about character. So today we're going to use it to talk about point of view. Okay, let's preview a couple questions. Remember, we probably have a good guess if you've been with us before, but now let's frame it in this point of view conversation. Who is telling this story? See if you can remember her name. I don't think it's featured in the poems, so we'll talk about that. What is the narrator like? Are these particular pictures resonating with you as maybe one way or another you might see the narrator, right? Let's think about that and we'll come back to it. Okay, why might the author have selected this narrator and told it from this point of view? Okay, and then the final question will be, what is the author's point of view? And what details tell you that? And then why? All right, so let's go back. We're just going to apply it as we get done. But we're going to go back to this final question and just start with number one, who's telling the story. Okay. All right, first poem is called Caridad and I Shouldn't Be Friends. We are not two sides of the same coin. We are not ever mistaken for sisters. We don't look alike, don't sound alike. We don't make no dang sense as friends. I curse up a storm and I'm always ready to knuckle up. Caridad recites Bible verses and promotes peace. I'm ready to finally feel what it's like to like a boy. Caridad wants to wait for marriage. I'm afraid of my mother, so I listen to what she says. Caridad genuinely respects her parents. I should hate Caridad. She's all my parents want in a daughter. She's everything I could never be. But Caridad, twin, and I have known each other since diapers. We celebrate birthdays together, attended Bible camp sleepovers with each other, spend Christmas Eve at each other's houses. She knows me in ways I don't have to explain, can see one of my tantrums coming a mile off, knows when I need her to joke and when I need to fume, or when I need to be told about myself. Mostly, Caridad isn't all goody-goody in her judgment. She knows all about the questions I have, about church and boys and mommy. But she don't ever tell me I'm wrong. She just gives me one of her looks, full of so much charity, and tells me that she knows I'll figure it all out. Okay, so that's a really revelatory poem. Again, we're thinking about point of view, and we're looking at this question of who is telling the story. Xiomara is our narrator, is telling this story, and she's talking about someone that she compares herself to. So a really good idea and a way to understand the point of view that we're developing in this story, who we're listening to this story through, and how she feels about life. Another way we can understand that is just what she just told us about her comparison. Okay, this one's really pertinent, and I know everybody's back to school now, but remember that night right before you came back. This one's called Night Before First Day of School. As I lie in bed thinking of this new school year, I feel myself stretching my skin apart. Even with my Amazon frame, I feel too small for all that's inside me. I want to break myself open like an egg smacked hard against an edge. Teachers always say that each school year is a new start. But even before this day, I think I've been beginning. Oh, I love that. We know that, right? Students are growing and learning and becoming themselves when they're not with teachers. And certainly you've had to experience that by yourselves quite a while, and probably excited to come back to that experience and share how you've grown. Okay, that one was called Night Before First Day of School. And again, we're talking about point of view, and we're going to answer some questions. I'm going to read you two more. Okay, this one's just titled HS. My high school is one of those old school structures from the Great Depression days or something. Kids come from all 5 boroughs, and most of us bus or train, although since it's my school zone, I can walk to it on a nice day. Chisholm High School sits wide and squat, taking up half a block, red brick and fenced-in courtyard with ball hoops and benches. It's not like Twins' fancy genius school, glass and futuristic. This is the typical hood school, and not too long ago it was considered one of the worst in the city. Gang fights in the morning and drug deals in the classroom. It's not like that anymore. But one thing I know for sure is that reputations last longer than the time it takes to make them. So I walk through metal detectors and turn my pockets out and greet security guards by name, and one of hundreds who every day are sifted like flour through the doors. And I keep my head down, and I cause no waves. I guess what I'm trying to say is this place is a place, neither safe nor unsafe, just a means, just a way to get closer to escape. Oh, I love reading this work to you, and I love participating in this text. I absolutely miss being in the classroom, and I bet you would love to talk about these poems in person. Let's think about at home if you could talk about what we've learned about the point of view and why you think the author may have selected Xiomara in this first-person account as she takes on her world. Okay, one more poem, and we're going to focus on this question next. I really think this is a defining poem. It's called Miss Galliano. Miss Galliano is not what I'd expected. Everyone talks about her like she's super strict and always assigning the toughest homework. So I expected someone older, a buttoned-up, floppy-haired, suit-wearing teacher with glasses sliding down her nose. Miss Galliano is young, has on bright colors, and wears her hair naturally curly. She's also little, like for real petite, but carries herself big. Know what I mean? Like she's used to shouldering her way through any assumptions made about her. Today I have her first period English, and after an hour and 15 minutes of icebreakers, where we learn one another's names, Miss Galliano pronounces mine right on the first try. She gives us our first assignment. Write about the most impactful day of your life. And although it's the first week of school, and teachers always fake the funk the first week, I have a feeling Miss Galliano actually wants to know my answer. Oh, so that's a special poem. And if we're thinking about the point of view that the author is using here to select our narrator and how she's reflecting so much and seeing so much insight into her teacher and how she pronounces her name right and how she really does want to hear her answer. To me, that's exciting because I would say students notice that on the first day of school and every day thereafter. But really that first impression you can hear coming out. And again, the author seems to have selected to have the point of view from that person in this story who's able to reflect on all that she's taking in, right? And we kind of live her mind and her experiences. Okay, so does that help you understand this question? Why the author might then have selected this narrator in the way that she has? And then let's go on and think about how you could take this to a further level of discussion and just decide, what is the author's point of view? We would decide first person, but then beyond that, how would you describe the author's point of view? How is this vision about life or the world coming out in the way that we are seeing what Xiomara sees? So which details tell you that? And again, the biggest question we ever want to follow up with is why? How could you convince us that you really did discover the details that help you discover the author's point of view? See if you can work on including those in your response the most, because this is the part that really justifies what you really say you've discovered. Okay, so what you're going to be asked to do is you can go off and find some more poems. You could find this book. You could find some excerpts from it online. But when you find a poem you like, I want you to determine the point of view. I want you to decide why the author perhaps portrayed the story the way that they have. And I want you to explain your guess with some details from the poem, kind of like you've heard us reflect back on today as we read specific poems. So I hope this has been some help to you in thinking about what point of view means. Remember, it's not just a number of first, second, or third person, but it's also a vantage point and an angle with which we view a world, a topic, or a life that's unfolding in a story, narrative, or even informational text that might be written for just a whole entirely different purpose. Okay, so we're going to explore some more things through this book. Down the road, we'll be looking into it a little bit more for what it reveals. So I hope you join us again. And again, this has been Chris Odom with KCPS Homeroom on ELA Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to KCPS Homeroom. I'm Chris Odom, your host for this show. We've been interviewing and talking with some local writers and professionals in our community over the last week or so. And I'm excited to say most of these students have come directly from my own classroom experience when I was a teacher at Paseo Academy for quite a few years, 16 of those. So now I have this really unique chance to follow up with people and hear about how some of the things that they're doing in their lives may have come from some of their experiences. And then I'm asking these young people and these professionals out in our world to talk directly to you, the youth of Kansas City, and think about your goals as you're starting to form them, being right now that you're going back to school. So this is Jerica Floyd, and Jerica was in my creative writing class for 4 years in a row at Paseo. Right? And I can remember she jumped into being a performer like really early. And originally, I think we read things from other people's work, first couple shows. And then what was exciting, the students got so capable that we started doing original only shows and really drew large audiences for quite a few years. And Jericho was a big part of that. It was very popular. Also had the cool point, and we videotaped a lot of that. So we would then show students as they came into the program, like, you could do this too. And you were very inspirational to a lot of people who followed you. So will you tell us about an update for you? What's going on with Jerica these days?
Well, I wrote a poetry book and I'm working on a graphic novel now called Ileana. And I currently work for a company that does social media for companies. So I just kind of post for them or moderate their comments to keep them from going a little crazy. And I use a lot of what I learned to come up with creative captions for different posts and things. So every job that I've had since high school has included some form of writing. So that's fun. And I had babies, as you can see, they dropping in. I got married. I went to college to Alabama A&M. I did 2 years there. I did 1 year at UMKC, and then unfortunately I had to stop because my mom got sick. She passed away in 2010. So I plan to go back. I'm not really sure if I will. I'd like to finish my book first and then think about it. So that's where I'm at.
Very cool. So tell us a little bit about what your book's about. It's a book of poems?
The first book I wrote is a book of poems. It's called some expletive word I wrote.
All right, fair enough.
And
we'll find that one.
It has some poems I wrote from high school, and then it has some poems I wrote while I was in college. In college, actually, I joined the poetry club there. That's how I got sort of made friends, because I went to a school that wasn't in Missouri, and I didn't know anybody in Alabama. So I joined the poetry club and made a lot of friends and got into slam poetry and doing that with them. And I was the president of Poetry Club sophomore year, I was the first sophomore to be president, so I was really excited about that.
Very cool.
So some of the poems are from that time, and then some of the poems are after my mom's passing. So it's a mixture of like Black empowerment, love poems, and grieving poems. And then the book is a graphic novel, and it's about a girl's journey into another world, I guess you could say. I just wanted to write a Black character that was not stereotypically Black, and just have them venture into the sci-fi realm of things. So it's like a coming of age sci-fi story.
Wow.
Sorry, my son is trying to hand me everything in the house.
Nice. Well, thank you. That was a great explanation, and sounds like a really inspired path to keep writing part of you, and really, really excited to hear about your 2 books. So you got a new piece or something that you decided you would like to share with us today?
Yeah, I have, this is one of the pieces I wrote in college. I want to say maybe 2006 or so.
Okay.
I think I really kind of blossomed in college and really started to enjoy just being myself. And so I got a little, I don't know, I started to walk taller. So I wrote a piece called Conceited.
Nice.
And so that's the one I wanted to share.
All right, great. Let's go for it. Thank you.
Should I start now?
Yeah, if you're ready, let's go for it.
Okay. All hail the new world, where order is set by the same color as the earth you walk on, so we must be grounded. From her we sprouted, bright as the sun with inevitable quickness and a sharp steel tongue with political slickness, which pushes through doubt and stabs through fear. What say you? Be we peasants or be we royalty? Rhetorical, your eyes should hurt at the brightness of your reflection. Who say I'm not as tall as a redwood, easygoing like a stream and deep as an ocean? Who say I'm not fly enough to dance on Venus, use the stars as my necklace and swim through Milky Ways? Who say you not? Who say you not queen like we or king like he? Your eyes should hurt from the brightness. I claim this. That's why I scribe hot fire like a volcanic eruption. My truth is so profound, it takes no assumptions. I am where the world is. My womb is what birthed it. So that gives me power to burn it, power to change it, rearrange status quo and put the others in cages. Revolution is mine. I put my name on that blacklist. I'll change the whole world with the flick of my pen, and I dare him to stop it. That's the end.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you so much. My goodness. Right. I felt every bit of that. And there's something really amazing about hearing you so many years later. I hear who you were then, but I hear a lot more. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Something went off there in 2006, right? So do you write pieces like that now? Is that something you still are playing with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read a few about the recent events, and wrote one about Sandra Bland, and I think I wrote one about Michael Brown too.
Sure. Well, that was fantastic. Let's do this for some of the readers, some of the listeners, if you're willing, because I never like to ask an artist to unpack their work, because I think that's the job of the reader. But can you get us kind of conceptually to understand, about that piece a little bit, and then what you were trying to get across?
Yeah. So I was just trying to, when I went to college, I know that I went to a predominantly Black high school, but I still didn't feel like I knew us. I felt like I knew us through the eyes of what's portrayed in the media and stereotypes that are put through on television and movies. And so I didn't feel like I really knew us or how we could be. And then I went to this beautiful college, and it was filled with all these different types of Black people, and none of them were what I thought a Black boy was, or a Black man was, or what a Black girl was or could be. They were, I mean, we had this poetry meeting one day, and this guy walked in, and he's from New York. He's got on big bag jeans, they're sagging, he has on oversized shirts, like he just looks like the stereotypical thug, or what media would call a thug. And he walked in, he took his hat off, and he was like, man, the Dow dropped 500 points today. And we was like, what? It was just so weird to hear that from his mouth. And I was like, we are not this thing that we believe we are. Like, there's so much more. And so I started to want to write something that showed that, we are grounded, and we are beautiful, and we can be big, and we can talk like we're gods. We can do that and not feel like we're breaking some rule or something. That you can feel conceited and be okay with that. Like, you can just love who you are and not feel like there's an issue with feeling like you're that big,
Right.
And so I just got into that, and there's a line in there where I say, who say you not queen, and who say you not king? Like, who told you couldn't be that?
Mm-hmm.
You can be that.
And I felt that one then. I felt it again when you just said it again just now. Like, that's definitely a place in that poem where it's going in. Like, and yeah, I remember watching you do that to audiences, and it was so fun being in the early stages of how much a kick you must get out of it when you really know that line is going to get them. And that's so neat, because it really does. And that questioning and that artistry, that you can tell how much you're thinking of the reaction of the listener. So that's huge. That's so huge. I'm so excited that you're continuing your path, and that you're finding use for your writing in a book and a graphic novel. Do you draw as well? Is that part of your graphic novel? Or
I tried, but it did
got
not
some
work
help.
well.
You got some help in that. All right. That's so fun. It's really fun to collaborate and work on creative ideas with other people to bring them to light. So that's great. Well, let's go out. You were already alluding to lots of it in your work, and you can see how much your work stands for. And I really think that's amazing. But what else would you say, without a poem, that you just might say to some young people, or some writers to be, or some students out there not feeling school all the way? What might you leave them with?
I would tell them to explore different possibilities. One of the things that I thought about after I was in college, when I was my sophomore year, was how many different careers I didn't know existed that would have helped me grow a little bit before I got to college. Or I thought about how it would help some of my friends who didn't want to go to college, who they just weren't interested in school, but they didn't know what to do. There's so many different career paths and different futures that don't include school. And sometimes you have to go out there and explore. You know, you don't have to go straight to college. You can be a flight attendant and get paid to fly around the world. You can be in the Peace Corps and get paid to go out and help people in other countries. You don't have to stick to this rigorous idea of what life is supposed to be. And so if you feel different, if you feel like you're different, there's some people who it's made for. You know, they excel. They love school. They do great in it. They go to college. They do great. They get out of college. They do great. And there's some students who just feel different, who feel like, I just don't like what school is. And I think I'm made to do something else. There's other things out there. And I think you can find education and knowledge in almost any career path that you search for, and it's out there for you. So that would be my main advice, is just to explore different possibilities for yourself. You know, you don't always have to follow what you think is a road written for you. You can write your own road and follow that. You know, it's there, and that you always have time. You have time to go back and correct if you need to. You know, if you take the wrong road and you get there and you're like, I'm not sure, you got time to backtrack and start a new one. And I think those are the two things that I felt when I was in high school, is I didn't have time to go out and explore. I just needed to go and graduate and get this done. And that I didn't have time to correct any mistakes I made. And both of those were not true. So that would be my main advice.
Great wisdom. That's so awesome. And I know people will hear that and use that immediately, which is another reason I wanted to try to do these kind of interviews. I really miss the notion of how the seniors really paid it back to the freshmen. And I think what was really neat, if any teachers out there create kind of a performance and you want to see how it can really work, ask your seniors to really mentor a freshman. And when we started doing that intentionally, it was so fun, because those ninth graders felt so honored to be selected by a performer or somebody that the school was really talking about. And I know everybody I keep talking to, they talk about that as much as anything else, is how much we created something that you could pass on to other people. So thank you so much, Sherika. This has been wonderful. I enjoy talking with you. I'd love to talk some more down the road and read your book and see your graphic novel. So
Thank you.
you want to, awesome. Yeah, it's been really great. So thank you again, Kansas City, for listening. This has been another edition of KCPS Homeroom. I'm your ELA coordinator for the district, Chris Odom, and we've been visiting again with Jerrica Floyd. Thanks again, Jerrica. Have a great day.